Hey, what are you doing here? This should be a fun one. For you, you get to see how I actually do what I do, my process. I should have done this before, but you know, I don't like doing it. I don't want to. Here's why. Here's why I don't want to show you how I write a joke. For the same reason why I tell you don't go on stage and announce that you're telling jokes. I don't want you evaluating my material before it's done. But I have to deal with that because that's the reality of what I've created here on this channel. I'm going to tell you exactly how I go through it, and it changes depending on what the inspiration was for the material. And there's one important thing. Once you tell the joke one way, when I tell it a different way, the different way and subsequent ways aren't going to be funny, or they aren't going to be as impactful to you because you already know what the joke is. It's very difficult to judge material because of that reason. That's why when you're trying it out on an audience, you do it 3 different times in 3 different venues with 3 different audiences if you make changes to see if you should keep it or still work on it or discard it for now. Because if I do it, the cat's out of the bag. It's also why comics tour instead of just staying in one city. Because if you're a band or a singer-songwriter, you can sing the same song forever. People don't get tired of that. Sometimes if you're a one-hit wonder, the crowd wants to hear you sing it twice. You could do it totally 2 different ways, acoustic and the way that they're used to. All right. Excuse me. Before I get into that, I want to give you some exciting news. I have a sponsor. Yeah, hard to believe, but here's the reality of it. It's my own eBay shop. I've been thinking about doing this, and somebody else in one of the Discords said, yeah, you should do that. And it makes total sense. I'm going to link it in the description, so it will take you directly to my eBay little area. I don't know how many listings I have up right now. I have to get back into it because I need money. And despite it falling off with the economy and everything else, I got to do something. I can't rely on my these baby blue eyes anymore to get me by. But it's not like you don't have to buy anything at all. Just if you're in the market for some vintage clothing or some new clothing or some old Betty Page photos, I collect a lot of different stuff to sell. I came across, this is one of my best scores on eBay. I'll tell you about this real quick. Somebody who owned an antique shop passed away, and they had an estate sale for all his stuff. And I always go to the nudes because you don't find that everywhere. And sure enough, they had a whole box full of this stuff. So, excuse me, and a lot of people don't buy it, so it keeps the price down. At these sales, at least. They buy it online, depending on what it is. But eBay's cracked down on nudity. Anything that is too, if they consider graphic, like they've taken off vintage men's magazines. They'll keep Playboy and Penthouse, but like Adam and Gent and those old ones from the, I guess, 50s and 60s, they won't let you list it. I go in there, I find the box. There's tons of different novelty items. I have those glasses. They're not listed right now, but where it's a woman in a bathing suit when you have a cola drink in it or something dark, and then as you drink it, they slowly get naked. But there was this one box. It was about this big, like that. I looked at it. It was all these nude photos from the 50s, and they were on like a card stock almost. I think there were close to 200 in there. So I brought them up with a bunch of other stuff because you have to bundle things so you get the cheapest price. And I said, how much are these? And it was a woman. I could tell she was a little uncomfortable, but they've seen everything. So she's like, I don't know, $50. I'm like, I'll take it. I get home, I start going through them to list them. And as I'm doing research, they're from this camera club that people would participate in where they would hire models. I think this is how it worked. They'd hire models and a bunch of photographers would go in there and they would all do their photos of the same topless model or, artistic nude. And then they would ship off the prints to different subscribers throughout the country. And this is back when it was very much taboo. The amazing part about the photos that I got, they were artist proofs. What an artist proof is, it was like I would look at the photo and it's the size of an index card. They were like this. They had crop marks and writing down in there in pencil how the photographer wanted them to be printed in some kind of publication. And so they would crop it like you would crop a picture on your phone. So the actual photographers were making these marks. It was like, oh boy, this is good. It's worth a lot more money. Then I stumbled across 15 original Betty Page photos in there with the crop marks. I listed each one of them individually for $9.99 plus shipping, and I would combine shipping if people bought more than one. But the Betty Pages, like one of them went for $500. It was a glorious time in the Williams household. Our food bowls were filled with treats and chewy bones. Willie had a grand old time. I actually didn't have Willie at the time. He's 2.5 now. Bingo is 12.5. So yeah, check out the eBay store. And if you want something, make an offer. You don't have to pay full price unless it's like the $10 or less item. And if you're from this channel, let me know when you make a purchase and I'll, write you a note or something. I don't know. But it's none of my personal stuff. It's not like I'm selling t-shirts with my face on it or like somebody in the Discord said, socks with my face on it. I don't know who must do that, but I can't imagine. Some of these sites or some of these influencers, they milk their own fans for every dollar they can. And, I'm sure I'd be in a much better financial position, but I can't imagine ever doing that. Eesh. It just seems so grabby. All right. So let's get to it. What do I do to come up with material? Well, I observe a lot of different things. I'm very observant because I've trained myself to be that way. So I'll pick up little bits of conversation at Starbucks in the morning or things that I'll talk with Gavin about in person or a friend on the phone or through messages. But I also scroll Twitter, and I'm not going to call it X. That's so weird. And I'll watch little clips of things that are in the zeitgeist, things that are in popular culture, and I'll get ideas. And then I'll watch movies sometimes. And I mean, you can make this stuff fun. I'm just living my life. I'm consuming entertainment and information, and then things will stick out to me. And so I have 2 stacks of note cards here. One, it's made up of just thoughts that come into my head, not jokes, little bits of dialogue, interesting phrases. I was watching this movie with Christian Bale, The Pale Blue Eye, I think it is, where I didn't realize, I probably wouldn't have watched it if I had known this going into it. It was actually good. I enjoyed it. But he teams up with a young Edgar Allan Poe to solve this crime. If I'd known Edgar Allan Poe was going to be a character in there, I would have been like, I don't want to see this crap. But it was good. So they're saying things in there, and I'm just like, if something strikes me, I just write it down. And I can use that as a jumping off point, or put a little bit of that. I don't want to just like steal the dialogue. I'm not going to do that. But I may alter it. All they're doing is they're going through old sayings from the 1830s to lighten up the script, or infuse it with an element of frivolity and uniqueness and authenticity. So one of the things I wrote down, sure, I like a tipple and a drink in a tavern. I don't know what that'll be. It's just, I don't even know what tipple means. Sure, I'd like a tipple and a drink at a tavern. And deliver it like, why are you accusing me of something? I don't know. This one I loved. This was from the Edgar Allan Poe character. And he said, oh, I've been a real figure of fun to you people tonight. You sit in judgment of me. That's what I added. You sit in judgment of me, the fool. The idea, figure of fun. I've been a real figure of fun to you people. It's such an interesting way to say, oh, yeah, I'm the jackass. I'm the moron here that you're all making fun of. But it sounds so erudite and intelligent that it shows he's not a fool. He's not a goofball. I was watching a movie last night called Arkansas. It's all right. It had some good parts. I like Vince Vaughn a lot, who, by the way, one night after a show, he told me I was his favorite new comic. Actually, no, he said I was his favorite comedian. And then a week later, I was hanging out with him and his sisters after the show on the Sunset Strip at bars, and he was giving me the stink eye because I think one of his sisters liked me. But he was roommates for a long time with a comic that I was friends with that ran those shows named Ahmed Ahmed. And Vince Vaughn was super famous. I'm like, why does he have a roommate? That's bizarre. But yeah, I really like his stuff. So there was a thing that John Malkovich said. He goes, oh, it's a real gully washer out there, meaning rain. It was raining a lot, a real gully washer. And then doing that, other ideas pop into my head, and I just start writing stuff from other things that I don't know where it came from. Like, I was caught up in the slurry. That's a great phrase. And as I said, I don't know where this stuff will go, but keeping little notes like this helps me. Like, if I found I was distracted by something, maybe a beautiful woman with large breasts, not the aristocratic ones, the petite breasts, I'd say, oh, I was caught up in the slurry that day, that evening. I don't know. Who cares? And then a Sade song. I think it's Sade. There's a stone in my heart. That's great. And I would change it. Again, it's not like I'm stealing directly. I'm taking in all of this information and I'll make it my own. And it's different getting cultural influences from a song or from a painting, because everything ultimately we're building on someone else's stuff, someone else's work. I said this in college to my advisor, my writing advisor. I feel like in the footnotes of my papers, I should footnote everything that got me to this place. Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner and the Acme Corp selling him all those booby traps. And the first nursery rhyme I ever heard. And the Christmas present my grandmother gave me when I was 4, that I remember. Everything is from something else. The difference is with stand-up and stealing is it's somebody doing a joke. It's a defined piece of work. It's not like you're doing a collage or mixed media for painting where you're taking pieces of a magazine and then broken plates and putting all these things together and then painting over it with gesso. Instead of saying the depths of my sorrow, the depths of my distress. I'll get to the joke in a minute. Don't worry. Just indulge me. The depths of my distress. It has depths, duh, and distress, duh. So I like matching things like that. And it also, if you say something in a manner that's different than how most people say it, it stands out. So my friend Jerry Perzigian, who was the showrunner with his writing partner for The Jeffersons, and then he worked on Golden Girls. He was a writer-producer on that. He has a very storied career. We worked together at Best Damn Sports Show, period, and then did a couple scripts together, had a little bit of interest, met with Michael Clark Duncan. We pitched a sitcom to him and then went and pitched it to his agent, and there was some interest. He used to say to people, instead of where did you grow up, he'd say, where were you a child? Where were you a child? That's such a unique way of saying where did you grow up that it makes the person stop and realize, oh, there was some thought put in behind this question. It creates a more interesting dialogue with someone. And in this case, your dialogue with the audience, which is really a monologue, but you make it seem like you're talking with them, not to them. And finally, of Night's Mad Design. I don't know. I like, when I write bits, I like them to sound literary. I like it to sound like prose. Then I'll go through, as I'm doing this, I'll write down funny thoughts that I have. So that's about language, that first grouping, and how I can put that in different bits. Then I write out different funny thoughts that I have. That maybe this can be a joke, maybe this can be a bit. And it's just brainstorming. And it's best when I'm watching something or scrolling Twitter or Facebook. Facebook's dead. This is an actual... So here's a joke I was thinking about. Facebook is like the mall in your hometown, that one mall where everybody's like, eesh, and you're all asking each other, you're all asking, see, I can't, it's not fully formed yet. Facebook is like that mall, Facebook is like that one mall in your town, where everybody's like, I don't know how that's still operational. I don't like you judging me. So last night, ever pick up something with your feet and pretend like you're a monkey? I think we've all done that. Where you take your feet and you're like trying to get it and like, oh, I'm a monkey. I used to do this thing when I was a kid where if I pull my tongue back and lift it up, that little salivatory gland shoots out a bit of spit. All right, Willie, simmer down. This isn't Saltburn. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, this would be good if I got kidnapped because I could shoot out my spit at them or on the gag and it'll help me get like the crazy ideas you have when you're a little kid. Like, I'm going to get out of that kidnapping scenario. That in the quicksand. I'd try to figure out ways. What would I do if I was in quicksand? Another one that obviously came from this past weekend because it was my birthday. I just had the idea of please stop asking straight, older, single men what they are doing for their birthday. You don't want to know. It's very dark. You're going to want to talk to someone else after that. Because people kept asking me, "What do you do for your birthday?" And I don't want to tell them the truth. Like, I'm going to go home and cry. But, you can make it sound like it's sinister. So I don't have a joke for that, but I think it's a good starting off point. What do you do when you're 53, you don't have kids or a wife, and it's your birthday? All my friends are married for the most part, except for comics, because they're usually on their second divorce, and struggling to get sober. Not all of them, of course. It's a joke, but yeah, I don't relate to a lot of people my age because they're living traditional lives, which I envy in some part, a lot of it. Also, I don't like cliched sayings. I can't stand them. So I'll use them in jokes. Like when people say, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Yeah, that's cute when you're young, but it's depressing as hell when you've made it to the long time portion of your existence. And I don't have anything for that. It's just trying to get premises. That's my aim, because I could take that and make it a joke. Then I was watching, for years I've been watching these van life videos on YouTube, and there's a part of me that thinks, oh, this is great. This would be amazing. I already have a van. It's not big enough for that, but if I had one of those Mercedes Sprinter vans, I could deck it all out like it's my own little world and just hit the open road, have the solar pack, and then you do the stealth stuff where you make it seem like an old flower truck, or selling nuts and bolts, or you put the construction vest on the dashboard at night, and then you go through that door that separates the cab from the cabin, and then you lock it, and you're there, you're hidden. And then reality strikes. I'm like, where the fuck would I drive to? What am I going to do with that all day? I'm just going to be looking for public restrooms and going to gyms just to shower. And then what? Where am I going to park at night? Where am I going to sleep? I know I'll be sleeping in the van, but it's insane. It's a psyop that we were all tricked into thinking they were setting us up for this housing crisis that we have again, where rents are twice what they were before the pandemic. I'm going to live in my van? It's homelessness. We've managed to put a glossy veneer on homelessness. I was thinking about doing it in Los Angeles, and then I get out of there because I was worried. I was sick, and I didn't want to get kicked out of any place. And I'm like, I'm going to get an RV. Yeah, so I can get robbed? So somebody can steal one of my dogs? There's a million things. And you know what? For some people, it's awesome. I'm thinking of you on the wild side because you know how to live like that. I had a heart attack and I have a balance disorder. What am I going to do? I freak out if I get a flat tire. When I was 20, I had a car and I was driving on what they call the Northway up here, going through the Adirondacks, and I got a flat tire. And it's like a highway. I pulled over on the left side of the road, and it was one way. So I'm in the speeding lane, and I take the tire off, and I threw the whole tire and the wheel well. I don't even know what it's called now. The part that the rubber tire's on, the part inside of there where hubcaps used to cover. I took that, the rims. I threw the rim with the tire into the gully. And then I put on the spare and I drove off. And I bring it to a garage a couple days later, and they're like, well, where's the tire? Where's the rim? I go, the what? They said, yeah, what'd you do with the rest of the tire, not just the rubber part? And I said, I'll be right back. So I had to drive back up. It's like 45 minutes from where I lived. and then pull over on that dangerous speeding passing side, the left side, and look, try to remember what part of the Northways gully I put it in. I found it, thank God. How would I navigate the world in a van doing that? I'm not cut out for that stuff. And plus you have to design them. You have to put all this money into it. I would do it to try to save money. But then I'd worry, well, I've lived in this house for 11 years and it's never broken down on the side of the road. What am I I gotta get a new house every 12 years or something? And now I'm seeing all these videos where van life, they're like, I'm quitting van life. Here's what's really going on. I'm like, well, you should have been saying that in the beginning, but I still get lured in. I still check out their builds. I'll go back on the YouTube and go, oh, whoa, how'd they do that? How did they do it? But yeah, I don't know where I would stay. I don't know where you park, and I have no place to drive to. If I was booked on the road a bunch of places, it could be interesting, but I'd want to do that sometime, not... It sucks being poor. All right. I'm going to get to the main joke that I'm going to break down, but I like just ranting to you. People probably clicked off, but that's all right. They're not... You got to stick around for the miracle. Been watching a lot of TikToks. I don't. That's a lie. But it's a good setup for the joke. Or it's information that I need for the joke. And this isn't even really a joke. It's just an observation. Been watching a lot of TikToks. I've been watching a lot of TikToks. I wasted 14 hours last week watching till the end. I don't know how to make that. It's funny to me. I wasted 14 hours last week watching TikToks, waiting for it. See, I get the idea in my head, and then I have to go through and rework it. So the concept is, how much time have I spent wasting? See, this is how my mind works. It gets all cluttered and gets confused, and I'm trying to find how to say it that makes sense to get it out of here and into your head. I've spent so much time. I've wasted so much time waiting for it in these TikTok videos. Now, I can't convey that now. I don't know how I'm going to convey it on stage. It works in a status update. But the idea is, you know how all these Instagram reels and YouTube things and TikToks, they say, wait for it or watch till the end. I wait for it. Nothing ever fucking happens. See, I like to throw a curse in there because it gets across the emotion. But yeah, okay. So here was the joke last night. This is an actual joke. I consider this a joke. It's a monologue type joke. And I used to write these for TV shows. It's not something, I'll probably do it Thursday night and I'll work on it some more. But I want to tell you the joke. I want to tell you alternate forms of ways I can massage it and deliver it and kind of how it all came about. But it's not something that I would consider like my style. I mean, it is because it came from me, but I would use it as a small chunk of a larger bit. Because this is even though it's topical, it has a longer shelf life than, say, the Bills losing because their kicker, in part because their kicker missed the field goal wide right again. That story is going to be old tomorrow, or probably by the time you watch this. I don't want to do something topical about politics because that changes hourly. You know, Ron DeSantis just dropped out. of the Republican primaries. Okay, nobody is going to care. Nobody's going to like. That's why a lot of political stuff, and it divides the crowd. Unless you're in a certain place where you know everybody's on the same page with their politics, I don't like doing that stuff. But there's some topics in our culture right now that are going to be there for a while. I'm going to read this because, as you see, I've been messing these up. I can't believe it. This is a half an hour of this already for this video, but it's longer form. All right. Excuse me. I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is there's books now about strap-on dildos in public school libraries. The good news is those same kids, oh, see, I already messed it up. When I originally wrote this, I put it on Twitter. It got 2 likes. I basically have sex bots on there. Follow me. But I use kids and kids. The bad news, so I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that kids now have access to books about strap-on dildos in public school libraries. The good news is those same kids in public schools are no longer taught how to read. Where do we go from here, audience? Do I shut down the channel? So I was watching, if I delivered that, it'd be way funnier. Trust me. It needs a lot of work. You'll see Thursday. You'll see. You made a... Hold on. Hold on, you. Hold on. Oh, I've been a real figure of fun around this channel. But I'm no fool. So when I'm watching clips on Twitter, I see Joyanne Reid in her show The Readout, which I watch just for her wigs. I want to see what's she going to delight me with today. She was interviewing this mom that's part of some organization that doesn't like degeneracy in schools. And usually when I was younger, I was like, that mom's a real pill. She's a real spoil sport. Now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't be talking about certain things in these books in the public school library. And they got into it, and Joyanne Reid was saying, well, you're taking this stuff out of context. This is a book about somebody's personal experience, and there's a lot of other stuff in this book that's like really hardcore, to the point where I don't even want to talk about it on this channel. Not only because of the censors, just because it's common decency. I don't want to bring up these topics. That's why I don't do certain types of jokes about a subject that starts with the R word that's done to people. Because I get it. I don't think that should be banned. I think people should be able to talk about whatever they want on stage. But for me personally, I don't want to bring up something that is the worst traumatic instance or injury in a person's life, the worst experience they've ever had. So I stay away from it. But so Joyanne Reid is saying, well, you're leaving out the context when you just say that there's a strap-on dildo in this book and how to use it. And these are elementary kids, from what I understand, or even if it's middle school. Like when I was a kid, the school library, you only went there if you had to. But if you had to, you're looking up National Geographic to see some African titties. You know what I mean? You're looking up photography books or art books to see if you can see a sketch of a woman's ass. That's why I was there. If I knew that, I had no concept, and I'm Generation X, of what a strap-on was. Like, so this woman who's from this organization, she's like, well, what context do you need for that to be okay? And I'm like, yeah. Because one argument makes sense. Like, well, you're taking this out of context. And if you're just focused on that, and you're like, yeah. And then she's like, well, what context do you need? What context would make this appropriate? And then Joyanne Reed starts filibustering. So I go on this woman's Twitter page, that's the head of this organization, and I see another clip where people are protesting. I think it's Mobs for Liberty. I don't know. I'm not trying to get political with you folks. I'm talking about ideas here. I'm above it. And one of the protesters who's trying to shut down this event, that same woman is yelling at her, or they're going back and forth, and she's like, they're not even teaching the kids to read in schools. Do you know what the illiteracy rate is? And that's when it hit me. Like, the funny angle of that to me is, well, who cares what books they put in there? None of these kids can read anymore. They're worried about other things. We got to get those pronouns right. We got to, I don't want to give other examples. I don't want to alienate any of you. I love all of you. I've written for comics of every race, creed, religion. I've written for trans comics. I've written for gay comics. I've written for white comics, as detestable as that may be. As I said in an early video, I just view comics as a separate breed. We're all those little differences, none of them matter. They're interesting for our comedy, but I have way more in common with a trans comic or a black female comic than I do with the average person, because we have a very specific niche in life that we're living. So I don't buy into a lot of those differences, except for I don't like Italians. I always like picking one group that is like, it's not bad. It's like the old joke about Canadians. Dave Foley on News Radio, he'd always deny or try to cover up that he was Canadian, his character. He'd be like, Canadian? No, I don't even like maple syrup. So it's funny to me to pick like the Italians or Protestants or Quakers. Quakers is funny. So that's where I get material from. And now what could I do with that to try to make it most effective when I deliver it? I use the good news and bad news. That's a little bit pedestrian for me, but I wanted to simplify the joke. So, hey, the bad news is, the good news is, I could dress it up more and say, it's another simplified way of saying fortunately, unfortunately. Or I could say, you have to look on the bright side. Yes, there's going to be troubles in our world, like the fact that there's now books in public school libraries about sodomy and really detailing all of the things that happen with that. But looking on the bright side, none of those kids can read, so no harm, no foul. It's a wash. It's all evened out. With this type of joke, it's not funny enough to me that I would hang my hat on it. But like I said, I would use it as something kind of like when you make a meal and it doesn't have enough meat in it, so you got to add some rice to the soup. I don't know if this even makes sense, but when you have to fill it out a bit more, it's kind of filler, but it's funny filler. There's a lot of different ways I could deliver that concept. Right now, it's good news and bad news, and I can add dramatics to the performance of it. And that little tag at the end where I gave more emotion and more delivery, more performance, where I said, it's a wash. It's all evened out. That makes the joke sometimes. It's not even a tag. It's just another thought put on the end of it. But if you really go for it on those things, that's what it could take C-level material to a B. All right. I hope that makes sense. Check out my eBay store. And outside of that, I haven't really written anything for Thursday. So now I'm limiting myself to 3 days. I have tonight, but this is going to take me a while. I have to ship a couple things from eBay. Sold a really nice blazer. See, this is the type of thing I would sell as well. But I like this enough to keep it for myself. This is Stanley Blacker. It's a 60s brand, 60s and 70s, I believe. Look at the buttons on that. Huh? Pretty cool. All right. Hey, you hung in there. It's 40 minutes. I'm looking at 41 minutes. All right. I got to go. Bye. See you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have some material done. I know I can work under pressure, but I have to get my ass in gear.